Well, today I have the honor of interviewing two very special people. The youth pastor at Dream City Church, Ash Matesius, and Sal Valery, one of our Dream City youth students. Thanks for being here, you guys.
Thank you for having me.
So Sal, we're here to talk about you because you have an incredible story. I've seen a shift in your life over the past couple of months, and it's been so cool to watch how God has been using you in our church and the leaders in our life, in your life here at our church as well. Now, Sal, a lot of what you've gone through over the last couple months had to do with some things that happened in your family.
Yeah.
Would you just tell us your story?
Well, it was sort of a little bit more of things having to do with the rough side and about loss in my family, especially through somebody that was genuinely a part of me, my own blood, and it was the loss of my mom. Sadly, my mom was, well, sort of always has been a kind of reoccurring drug addict.
Yeah.
And well, it was actually because I had found out my biological dad had passed away. He died due to diabetes complications in the hospital, which I was completely unaware of, and I only found out 2 years after his passing. So we ended up going back over to my family, which sadly they kind of disowned me because I changed my last name from theirs. And upon arrival, it was a little weird, mainly due to the fact that they actually accepted me, but I didn't know anything about them. And my mom started to get back on track with them and talking to them more, and it sort of led on from there. She got into sort of the rough side with that family, and she relapsed.
She relapsed. It's okay.
My mom had relapsed for a couple months from 2019, around, I want to say May of 2019 until 2020, and she got into a rough car accident on the highway while she was under the influence, and what ended up happening is she got caught with possession of drugs on her, such as meth and things like that, and she was then taken to jail for 80 days, where she then spent her 41st birthday. And sadly, when she was treated like a pig there.
I'm sorry.
And it was the worst because hearing all the stories of when she would call me, like there was this one where a girl that was next to her cell had actually strangled herself with a pillow sheet.
Wow.
And she had to live through that. And it was hard because I wanted my mom home.
Yeah.
She, however, did end up one day coming back home, and I remember all the time, every single phone call that we always had was, "I miss your face, Sal, I can't wait to see you."
You guys were
like
close.
That. Yeah, my mom was my everything because I grew up without a father figure, so my mom was everything to me.
Yeah.
And so she was my best friend, and what ended up happening is I remember the day she came home and she got off that city bus and she came running to us. However, sadly, I knew my mom wasn't clean.
You knew she was relapsing.
Yeah. And we think that on the way to home, she relapsed by trading her jail ID with somebody for drugs. And already within 3 days of her coming home, she's out and about all over again.
Yeah.
On the third day that she came home, me and my mom argued. And I called her a lot of really mean names, and I called her a druggie. And then the day after, we didn't really talk much because she was out and about. And later that night, on the fourth day, my grandma walked out into the laundry room finding my mom relapsing once again.
Yeah.
She's smoking Percocets, which my grandma then slapped her, argued with her, and everything like that. But later on in the story, I find out that my grandma also aided her, showered her, bathed her, and everything until she went back to sleep. But the next day, my mom walked out of her room, looked at me and said, "I love you, Sal. I'm gonna go outside and smoke a cigarette. When I get back inside, would you like to watch a movie?
Yeah.
Would it be okay if I lay with you?" And I said, "Yeah, Mom, of course. I'll be right here, and I'll start the movie for us." My grandma was out getting her blood drawn, and she comes home not even 5 minutes after I had just seen my mom. Goes into the backyard, and there's my mom, the white face with blue lips. All I hear is the shout of my grandma and a banshee scream, and I run out. My mom's laid down on a chair and suffocating on her own vomit.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Then the way I reacted was I had to pick my mom up, lay her down, and give her CPR.
Mm.
I could feel my mom's ribs shattering in my hands, and I could hear every crack. And I had to hold my mom as I watched her regurgitate her own organs die in my arms.
I'm so sorry.
And I'll never forget, I had to give my mom 220 chest compressions.
Mm. Wow. Sal, you've been through so much. And I know it's still so fresh for you. And I know that, after this had happened, you went to a very dark place for a while.
Yeah, sadly, I've never committed self-harm whatsoever, other than punching inanimate objects. But because of the PTSD of feeling my mom's ribs and my hands shatter, I sadly abused my hands. And to the point I've damaged the scar tissue, well, not the scar tissue, but the tissue in my hands and the nerve endings, that I've lost 32% feeling in my left hand.
Wow.
And roughly, I want to say 20% in my right.
Wow. Now, Sal, through this season where you were struggling and going into such, dark places, as many of us do when we go through traumatic things, I can't imagine how you've gone through things like this. But, Sal, you are a walking testament of the healing power of Jesus. And you called a youth leader when you were at your darkest moment. Tell us about that youth leader and the impact they've had on your life.
One of my best buddies, Matt Spicknell, he's been there for me a lot, and I've actually really connected with him.
Oh, yeah.
Especially due to the reason that he's gone through this very similar life as me. He's been on that dark road, same as I, or grew up in bad places, having to make the bad calls just to survive.
Yeah.
And one day, I went to a bridge over the I-17 going southbound, and it's that yellow bridge right there next to, I want to say, Dunlap to McDowell.
Sure.
And the worst part about it is that is actually the same bridge where my mom would take me as a kid. I climbed up onto it and I sat there looking down at the oncoming traffic, and I was ready to let things go.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I don't know why, but I had called Matt beforehand on my way driving there.
Wow.
And then I hung up. But when I got there and I sat up there, for some reason, I didn't hear Matt's voice. And I didn't hear Matt's voice in my head, but I didn't hear my mom's either. For some reason, it was something told me to get down.
Wow.
Come on. Praise God.
Then so I got up and got down.
Yeah.
I didn't do what I was hoping to do.
Yeah. And so, Sal, maybe Ash, you can answer this. There's people out there who go through tough things like this. They have nobody.
Right.
What is the importance of youth leaders connecting with students? I mean, it saves people's lives. Sal's testimony today is showing that we need people. We can't go through things alone. And thank God for the church to
Right.
wrap our arms around people. Tell us about the importance of having a youth leader.
Yeah, so I would just say, the very first thing God ever declared that's not good was for man to be alone. He made a perfect world with perfect order and perfect harmony, and yet something wasn't right. That Adam was alone. And we live in an age with more technology, more food, more knowledge, more ways to pleasure ourselves than ever, and yet the suicide rate is still climbing because people are more alone than ever.
Yeah.
And so you can never understate and undervalue the power of community. And that's what my youth group has been built upon. That's what my father built his upon. And that's what really kind of makes things last is community.
Talk about the 3-2-1 rule you have with leaders.
Yeah, so we do a 3-2-1 rule, which is 3 conversations via text, 2 phone calls or FaceTimes, and 1 time a month where they take them out to lunch. And that way those people know, hey, you're not just another face. You don't just count for a head count in the seats so that we can feel good. No, you're valued here. We love you. We want to pour into you. I want to hear about your life. I want to hear about your sports. I want to hear about everything you care about, I'm going to care about.
Yeah.
And that way they can feel like they're a part of our family.
Yeah. Sal, I just love that you had someone to call in that season, and so many people have nobody to call. What would you say the importance of being a part of a church community is and finding somebody in your life like a Matt Spicknell, like a Dream City Youth?
I'd have to say it's helped me come to realize a lot of things that no longer am I trying to build this persona or such to keep moving forward because of the way I grew up. Or it's also helped me realize that sometimes loss is okay. And hitting rock bottom isn't the end of the world, because sometimes when you hit rock bottom, only then will you realize that God is that rock.
Come on.
Because without that rock, you'd keep falling.
Yeah.
And that's his last stand of picking you back up.
Wow.
Come on, I love that. That's a sermon.
Sal, mic drop. Right there. That is the mic drop. You are an incredible youth student. Ash and I have enjoyed watching how God has transformed in your life, and we've been enjoying being here with you through this
Thank you.
season. And God has so much for your future, and your testimony today is going to resonate with so many people watching. A lot of people have gone through what you've gone through, and thank you for being a light in this darkness. And it's hard to share your story, but you did it with such grace. Thank you, Sal.
Thank you.
Well, there are so many students out there, just like Sal, who've been through things, yet they were alone. Thank goodness that Sal wasn't alone, because he understood that having a church community is the most important thing in the world. Thank God for leaders like Matt Spicknell, who were there for him in his darkest times. If you are a youth student, 6th grade to 12th grade, and you need a community, we encourage you to find a youth group or come to Dream City Youth. Or maybe you are someone who's not a youth student and you're going through a dark time. We want to be a church that wraps our arms around you. Go to dreamcitychurch.us to find out how you can get help today.